Welcome to the Directors Forum. We are really excited today to have a particularly remarkable public relations guest, and to introduce him, I'm going to turn the moderating over to Jerry Swirling, my colleague who directs our public relations courses. Jerry.
Thank you very much, Geneva. It really is a pleasure to be here today and to introduce a longtime colleague and friend, Fred Good. We've known each other for many, many years, and it's really been great to watch Fred's career progress. Fred is like now definitely a luminary in our profession. And I was reading as I was saying, I read your bio at the GolinHarris website, and it's like, and he's very good at new business, and he's grown the account a lot, and he's done all of this. But you have a really interesting background. Mm-hmm. And I know you're a Hoosier, you're from Indiana, and at some point you wised up and moved to Southern California. Mm-hmm. And of course you're married to Cheryl, mm-hmm. who's also a very accomplished public relations professional. And you have a young son, Noah.
Right.
How old is Noah?
And I have a daughter, Emily.
I missed that. Daughter,
she lives out here in LA.
Okay, mm-hmm. All right. So, but tell us a little bit more about your background before you get into this amazing thing you're doing in the agency. How did you get to this investigation?
Well, by accident, mainly. I started late in life in the PR agency. I was much older than all of you, and before that, and I've worked at this company for 25 years. Prior to that, I had like 25 different jobs, all kinds of things. I taught school, I was a tour guide, I was a doorman at the Biltmore Hotel in downtown LA. I delivered newspapers. I did hundreds of different things, some of which I don't tell anybody about. And then, and I ran a record company in Indiana called Barbecue Records. And I moved to LA to become famous in the music business. And that never happened, like it doesn't for most people who come out here. And then, but all throughout that, I was always involved in publicity and promotion of the records or of the school or whatever it was I was doing. I had several businesses I started. So it was sort of marketing and public relations was sort of always in my blood. And then in my 30s I decided I had to get serious and get a real job.
Why? Oh, I'm so glad.
Well, money was one of the reasons, but it just seemed like a good time. I had been sort of doing everything else for a long time. And I started my own agency, small agency, and then I was doing freelance work for other agencies, and I got hired by Edelman. And for some reason they put me on their biggest account at the time was Kentucky Fried Chicken, so they gave me that account. And then a little ways after that, I got a call from a small firm in LA, which you knew, Berkmer & Klein, Betsy Berkmer and Richard Klein, two colleagues of mine. And they asked me to come over there, and it was about 15 people, and it seemed like a good idea at the time, and then a year later we were bought by GolinHarris, and I'm the one surviving member of that group that stuck around for all this time. So it was a very circuitous route to get where I am, but it's been great.
Great. We'll have some time, I hope, for questions, and you can ask about those things that he didn't want to tell you about. But why don't you, pick it up with whatever you want to talk about.
I'll stand up if that's okay, so you guys can hear me and see me a little bit better. The topic I'm talking about today is agency for the future, and it's a little bit of an inside peek at a journey that we started at GolinHarris about a year ago. And as I go through this, I'll explain to you sort of, this is a lot about what we thought and what we did. And it begins with just despite what Jerry says, I really cannot predict the future, but I do know from being in our business for a long time, there are some things that are changing a lot that are probably no surprise to any of you, related to the media and the world we work in terms of where you get the information, how fast it happens, how it connects, and how it gets integrated. First of all, the places that we typically get information from are, some are rising, some are shrinking, but it's not as simple as just saying it's traditional media is going away and digital is taking over. Some digital media is not doing very well at all. Look at MySpace. And some traditional media is doing really great. So the idea is that there's a whole new mix of where people get their information. You combine that with the speed that it takes, and in this case, it's sort of what we call the lead time. There are, in our businesses, there are magazines like Fast Company or monthly magazines. You still have to place a story in 6 months or a year in advance to get a placement. And then you move down the column, and now, these days, you're working with social media where the time frame is much more limited. So the speed that we have to work with changes. You still have to be able to do the stuff at the top, but you've got to be adaptable to be able to stuff that's really happening in real time. And how can you do that? Can an agency function like that? Thirdly is this idea of connectivity. A lot of companies right now have a digital media group and a mainstream media group, and they work totally separate, which I think is missing the big opportunity, because all of you who operate in this space or live in this space know that these two things are intertwined in a way that they're totally inseparable. Here's just a few facts about that. But if you look at most of the blogs or most of the posts on Twitter, and you go to those links, where are those links going to? They're mainly going back to mainstream media. And where are the people in mainstream media getting ideas for stories? How are they finding out about what's going on? Well, they're reading blogs and they're on social media. So the interaction is very dynamic. It's happening every second of every day. And even on television, this is my favorite one, and I made this figure up. But I know it's 98% because of the lady that fell in the fountain at the mall when she was texting. Have you seen that video? Yeah. She's walking the mall and she's on her BlackBerry phone and she falls right into the fountain. That was on every television station in the country. And when you go to YouTube and look up her on YouTube, you don't see the video from the mall, you see the video of her on national television. So even national television is picking up stuff from the internet, and that's how they're finding their content. This is, you see, with all the new changes with Facebook lately, this is also a big important aspect of it, is that you're getting a lot of your news from the same sources your friends are, or from your friends themselves. Finally, the integration. We all, PR people, have always worked on this little island called earned media, publicity. And I think that is much less the case today. The consumer doesn't know the difference between these different kinds of media, and clients anymore want all of this to work together. So this is a gigantic opportunity for the people in this room and for our business, is to expand beyond just doing media relations to social media, where we have a big presence now, but even into own media. That's like building websites and creating newsletters and anything that a company can own, to also paid media. Advertising companies are all getting into PR now. And my belief is we've got to be doing the same thing, getting into advertising. There's no reason that we can't go after their business the way they're going after ours. So these four trends sort of made us think. A year ago when we met, we talked about what GolinHarris wanted to be in the next 10 years. It was in 2010, and we'd had a great decade. We'd been named Agency of the Year 3 or 4 times, best place to work. We're real solid financially, and we wanted to say, 10 years from now, where do we want to be, given all these changes I've been talking about? And we met for a day, and we came up with several ideas, and one of them was the one that I'm going to walk you through today. And we started with asking ourselves what our clients want. And we survey our clients, and we talk to them all the time, so this was something we thought we knew. And what we found is that they wanted us, starting over here, to understand their business. Not just to understand media relations, but to understand the business and what they were looking for in terms of product sales, or what it meant for them financially, and to be able to bring insights to their business that would help them sell more products or gain more market share or influence people. Secondly, they're looking for ideas. They're looking for really huge ideas. And in the old days, they'd only go to their ad agencies for these ideas. That has completely changed. The opportunity now is for anybody to bring an idea to a client or a company, and we needed to be better at that. Then they wanted engagement. They wanted engagement across all different platforms, whether it's traditional, social, paid, owned, earned, everything. And they'd like to have all that integrated into one nice package. A lot of clients today don't want to work with 7 different agencies for 7 different channels of communication. They'd like to have one agency who can do all of that. So this is what sort of motivated us to think differently about public relations. This also motivated us. This is a study done by Forrester Research, and they talked to CMOs, chief marketing officers of various companies in the U.S., and they asked them to rate agencies on what they thought they were good at. And you can see it goes from being really good at it to not so good. And if you look at the things that I just talked about, the insights, the analytics, the creativity, you can see where PR firms rank on those. On technology, pretty much a 0. Analytics, almost. Brands, strategy and insight, not very good. Creative, not very good. So in the things that our clients wanted, our clients didn't think we were particularly good at. So that seems like, sort of that's not good, but it's also an opportunity to improve in some areas that are really critical to our business. And that's what our model was based on. Any questions about that? Not everybody gets a perfect score, but in the areas that are important, PR didn't do too well. So this is where we decided we needed to change. GH is GolinHarris. We wanted to be more adaptable, more holistic in the way we thought about media. We wanted to be a business partner to understand people's business, not just their communications. And most importantly, we wanted to move from being generalists to specialists. And I think that's the whole crux of what we're after now at our company. From traditional media, multimedia, and in our case, to be more of a global company. And we call this Project Agency for the Future. And that was the idea of building an agency that could win in a very complex digital sort of environment. And that's been our internal name and sort of what the name for this concept was. But the future is really right now. Why did we do this? Partially out of fear, and then partially out of opportunity. I went to a place called Dumbo. Has anybody heard of Dumbo? Anybody from Brooklyn? It's a little place under it's down under the Manhattan Bridge overpass. It's spelled Dumbo. And I went to visit these digital companies. In a 2-block area, there are 63 digital companies, every one of them who wanted to work for our clients. So we were a little afraid of being superseded by companies that understand technology way better than we do. We're also being marginalized. We're not the biggest agency in the world. There's some, we're like probably the 10th in the U.S., but the bigger ones are a lot bigger than us, so we're afraid of them. And we just didn't want to become irrelevant. But mostly it was opportunity to serve our clients better, to offer more products, be bigger in social media, provide opportunities for our people, attract great talent, and win more business. Here were our strategies to expand our capabilities into marketing. I talked about the transition from generalist to specialist. This is very important, and I'll talk more about that, training and technology. Make some acquisitions. We just did that. I just was in Brazil 2 weeks ago, and we acquired an agency in Brazil. That's part of being more global. We wanted to simplify the way we operate, and most of all, we wanted to redesign our whole agency from the ground up. So that's the approach we took. This is how our agency is 56 years old, and this is how we were organized in the beginning. And it's the way most PR firms are organized. We have the same amount of ranks as the U.S. Army. Maybe we were copying that. And when we talked to our clients about it, it wasn't really relevant to them. And the only difference between somebody here and somebody here and somebody here isn't their skill set, it's just how long they've been around. And which is great for people like me, but not so great for people like you. So we thought, this is not really working. If you started an agency today, you would not set it up like this. There would be no reason to create this. But we had, in fact, been doing it successfully for over 50 years. So it becomes a little harder to change. So we created a new model. And the new model was built around those things I showed you before, the insights, the ideas, and the engagement. And we created 4 what we call communities. Strategists are people that are very data-driven, business-minded, measurement-oriented. They like research. They're big picture thinkers. Another group, creators. They're the idea people, but not just creating the ideas, but also packaging the ideas, whether it's in written word or in video or digitally packaged. The people that like to work with ideas and how to communicate those ideas. And then a community of connectors, and these are people that are working with all different kinds of media, social media, traditional media, but they're experts at selling and understanding stories, storytelling, really. And in the middle are the people who manage these relationships with our clients, who understand all the different aspects of marketing, and are the kind of people that develop great plans and integrate everything, can make all these things work together. So much more specialized based on skills and more relevant to what exactly, we designed it exactly based on what we thought our clients wanted. So this was our new model. We call it G4 because of GolinHarris, and it has 4 components to it. The process of getting there, we had, in the PR world, in the agency world, you do most of the work yourself. We were able to hire a consultant to help us with the model, a management consultant, and we hired some HR people, but mostly we did it ourselves. And this was sort of the timeline to design the organization, to communicate it to our clients, to build the technology and the tools, to get people into the model, and then to manage the whole process of changing the way that we think and operate. This was our mantra. This is a real word. In the Urban Dictionary it is. Has anybody ever seen the Urban Dictionary online? It's called Prevolve, and cleverly the first 2 letters are PR. And the idea is that you're involving intentionally, changing intentionally. We were doing great. We didn't need to do this, but we wanted to in order to make sure that we were surviving and ahead of the game in 10 years the way that we are now. So that was sort of our mantra, and this was our model, which I explained to you before. And we assessed our people. First of all, I'm going to walk you through a little bit of the process. So to get people into the model, we had to design, what are the characteristics of each of these communities and how do people fit in it. And we used this thing called the Lominger competency model, which is a very popular way to describe or assess characteristics of people and where they're most likely to succeed. So we sort of PRized this thing. We took Lominger characteristics and we added PR elements to it, and we came up with 8 things for each one of these groups. And you'll see they make sense. Like a strategist is business-minded, obsessed with data. A connector is media savvy. A trend watcher, news junkie. That was one we made up. A creator is very comfortable with ambiguity. They love the idea of trying to figure things out. And a catalyst is collaborative, problem solver, politically savvy, highly collaborative. So those are the sort of characteristics that we determined for each of these groups after lots of discussions and thoughtful conversations about it. And then we created these profiles based on this to try to put people into groups that they felt comfortable with. So we sort of took those words and made sentences out of them. So each group had a sort of a snapshot. A strategist, your quick study of unfamiliar industries and new concepts. You love to find solutions to complex problems. So you get the idea of what each of these communities look like. We did this with all 4. Creators, love ideas that wow their clients, bringing insights to life in a way that connects with people, trying new things, inspiration. You get the idea of what a creator looks like. That's how creators have to dress at our agency. And connectors, these are the media people, and you'll see that the same sort of things play out. So there's certainly, I think you can say that when you work in our field, a lot of people like all of these things or feel comfortable in many of these different areas, but we were trying to really categorize these things so we could develop these skills a little more fully. and finally the catalyst. And they were ties. So that's, if you're a catalyst, you have to wear a tie around that. But the idea is that in the old model, you had lots of people in the agency who knew a little bit about everything. But our business has become so complicated that it's very hard to be an expert in anything if you're doing that, and our clients want experts. Or they'll go hire these guys in Dumbo if we don't know as much as the guys in Dumbo. So our idea was to have people that are a little more narrowly focused but have much deeper skills and knowledge in one particular area. So that was the idea of shifting from generalists to specialists. We had a very complex process of how to assess people. We had an online tool, and you'd go in and you'd rank yourself against all these attributes, and then you'd meet with your supervisor to discuss them, and we had a bunch of open-ended questions, and then they would do an assessment where you should be, and then they meet with you again, and blah, blah, blah. So we had a very thoughtful process to try to get to, we did it with every employee in our agency, and every account team in the agency, to find out which community that we thought they belonged in.
Great question.
Yeah.
How did you handle situations where somebody might have tried to game the system? You know,
Well,
they wanted to be in a particular community,
Yeah.
probably didn't belong there, and you tried to game it by how they answered questions.
Well, I think mostly people's supervisors know them well enough to know if they're good, what they're good at. So it wasn't just sign me up for this group. It had to be a two-way conversation, and so part of it was their supervisor helping them choose what they would be best at. So we went through that process in the summer. And then we chose leaders for each of these groups. And they're not leaders who have direct responsibility for people's reviews and their salaries, and they don't report to them. But we chose for the strategist one of our smartest strategy guys. This guy runs, they run two of our biggest accounts, so they're great catalysts. This guy is a digital media guy, this is a mainstream media guy, this is a digital media guy in London. And he's our creative director. So we chose people to be the leaders for each of these four communities based on their skills. We thought they were the best at those particular skills. And then their job is to help these groups collaborate, to build training programs for them, to develop best practices within these communities, create new services, and be thought leaders. So they're not managing the people, but they're sort of nurturing these communities to make sure that they're growing and getting the kinds of things they need, and that they're talking to each other. And I'll show you how we accomplish that. We changed all of our titles. You saw that long list before of 11. We thought about going to 0, but nobody really had the appetite for that much change, so we went to 5. But the difference was we created 5 in each community. There used to be 12 in here. And if you came into the agency, your career path, if you were a good writer, you're a good media person, or you're whatever it was you were really good at, in order to grow your career, you had to get into account management. And oftentimes, people are very good at one aspect of what we do, but they're not particularly good at account management. But that was the track you had to be on. And that's why we had all these titles, and supervisor, director, blah, blah, blah. So now, in our agency, you can come in and say, all I want to do is be a writer, but you can still have the same sort of career progression that before you would have had to have done in account management. You can be a video producer and have a whole career doing video production and never speak to a client if you don't want to. Same thing in strategy, same thing in media. So we compressed the number of levels, but we broadened them so they would fit everybody. And we rewrote job descriptions for every single one of these, which was the most tedious process ever, and that's what we made Judy do. Yeah, here's a job description for a catalyst, and then also on the job description, which we had never done before, we created the ability so you could see the actual things that would take you from one level to the next. So in this case, it was a catalyst, so the titles were, this is sort of the account management route, so you could see the things you needed to do to move up the career track, not just what you were doing today. And it's very complicated to do that. Then training was a big part of this. We figured if we're going to ask people to be very good at one particular thing, then we feel responsible for training them to be good at that. So we have a training program that includes G4 things, that's stuff that we create ourselves, training programs we create. Things we get from our partners. We're part of a big holding company called Interpublic, so there's lots of other companies we can have come in and teach us about advertising, direct marketing, special events, sports marketing, stuff like that. Outside, groups, seminars that you can attend and training you can go to. And then finally, self-directed reading lists and online stuff. Next, Wednesday and Thursday in Chicago, we're bringing 100 people together from all over our company at all different levels. Some are entry level, some have been with us for 15 years. And we're doing a training for all 4 of these communities, led by those community leaders. So at this training session, some of our sessions will be for everybody, but the majority of them will be in smaller groups of just catalysts, or just creators, or just connectors, talking about that particular skill set. We've never done this before, and it's going to be really exciting, and we hope to be able to do these 3 or 4 times a year, but the first one will be next week. Training is really probably the most onerous aspect of this. The training is really key to this. If you don't give people the skills that they need, there's no point in changing their role if you don't teach them how to do the job in a really sophisticated way. And right now, a lot of our training it's okay, but it's a lot of webinars and things like on presentation training and sort of just standard things, dealing with conflict. That's great. Everybody should know how to deal with conflict. But we need to teach people about how to operate with HTML5. We need to teach people how to create beautiful infographics. Things that are not part of that sort of standard level of that works for everybody. Now, the technology and the tools. As I said, training and technology were the 2 things we had to invest money in. And where all of this kind of comes together is in what we call the bridge. And this is a picture of the bridge in our New York office. We are building one of these we have built them in most of our U.S. office. We're building one in every single office around the world. And it is a sort of a mission control center where you've got people working side by side, traditional media people and digital media people, social media people, all together, working on, off of television shows, off of every potential website and every social media feed. We have the highest tech stuff you can get, all the software for monitoring. But they're not just monitoring, they're in there pitching stories and selling ideas for our clients. And they're watching the interaction between social media and traditional media on a day in and day, minute by minute basis, and trying to take advantage of that for their particular clients. Every day starts with an editorial meeting where on a giant board they talk about everything that's happening in that particular day, and how, if it's the royal wedding, how can we get our clients involved in the royal wedding? What's going to be happening with that? Is Obama somewhere? Is there some new product? Is the iPad being launched? Well, if the iPad's being launched today, how can our clients play off of that? And what are we going to see happening in social media? What are the top trending topics? And how can we work with those to our clients' benefit? How can we monitor those to give our clients intelligence? How can we develop relationships with the people that are talking about these things so we can use those in the future? But it's a very organic thing, and so we've got the planned media, like I showed before, the fast company kind of stuff, but we've also have things that are happening spontaneously, opportunities that we can find. They're just happening just now, and if you're not looking for them, they're gone in 5 minutes. So that's the bridge, and we are doing a lot with that right now. This is sort of a media planning grid. It's much more sophisticated than this now. I was just on the phone this morning with the people that are developing it, but what you're going to see the next time I show this is going to be much more elaborate. But the idea is to be planning for all these different kinds of media: paid, owned, shared, and earned, not just a story engine for magazines and television. And then down here, the opportunistic, real-time opportunities, what's happening on a day-to-day basis that can also be good for your clients.
Fred, can I ask you,
Yeah.
for those of us who are not in public relations,
Yeah.
although we may very much enjoy
Yes.
and admire it, what's the difference among paid, earned, what that previous slide, paid, earned? Can you describe that?
Earned is publicity. It is getting your client or or yourself or your company in the media without. It's not for free, but you're not paying for that opportunity. So it's like a story in the LA Times.
Interest of reporting.
Yeah, interest or reporting. Paid is simply advertising in most cases, but nowadays in our business there's an element of paid that is sort of new, and it's not brand new, but it's recently Volkswagen gave away cars to everyone in the audience at Oprah. Well, that's a paid opportunity. You don't just call and say, we'd like to give away cars. They'd say, how much are you going to pay us to do that? Most of the talk shows now, you have to pay to have a giveaway or a sponsorship or anything like that. So paid media can be anything from paying to be on a talk show, to buying a banner ad on a website, to a promotion online, or to straight TV advertising. Owned is anything that a company owns. The most obvious thing would be a website. You also can own a Facebook page. You can own a mobile application. We're doing a lot of mobile applications. That's something that you would own in an app on an iPad as an owned media. And then shared is more conversational. It's Twitter and Facebook and and blogs and things like that are where people are just interacting, sharing information online or in some other fashion. Thanks for asking that question, because I forget that not everybody lives this and breathes this every day in life. On the idea part of things, we created a software system we call it the Bright Collective, and it allows us to harvest ideas from anywhere. So instead of just having a brainstorming where you're sitting around a table like this with 10 people saying, what should we do for Unilever? We can put a problem or a challenge up online. We can then select the people we want to participate in this. They can be our employees, they can be our clients, they can be experts in this field, moms, you name it. And they can all go on and read this challenge and then add ideas and expand upon it, and then and talk about each other's ideas and actually rate and build on ideas and then rate those ideas and vote on them at the end. So it's sort of a crowdsourcing way to brainstorm new ideas. And this is something that we built and we use for our clients to sort of get better ideas. And this is, each one of the 4 communities has its own site. And it's a network. They're like Facebook pages, but it's called Presently. This is our connector site, and it works just like Facebook. Everybody has an account. You share information, you share ideas. But the cool thing is that these are global. So before, the people in our Singapore office didn't really work that much with the people in our London office unless they were on the same account. Now the connectors all over the world can share ideas about media, or the strategists from all over the world can share new research reports. So you've got this interaction on a global basis that never happened before through a very simple to operate Facebook-style pages. And we have 4 of those. And you're only on the one that is your community. So it's really focused, just like the training, to the individual community. This just talks about how our proprietary products fit into this mix. These are some of the things we currently do. And then these are sort of some of the new things that we want to do. And you can see this list could be much longer, but the opportunity for us as a company is, with this model, you can do so many more things than you can with the old model. It allows you to add more and more services for clients and give them more and more products that they can use, and with the idea of building our company faster than we would if we were just doing the straight media relations work. So we decided to, after 10 months of working on this, we weren't sure whether anybody would care what we were doing, because it was all just internal, inside baseball. It's just inside our agency, and frankly, we were had worked so much on it that we'd sort of lost sight of whether or not this was going to even be important. But we decided, since we'd spent so much time on this, that we would brief a few people about it. So we went to some of the PR trades and the guy that writes for Stuart Elliott, who writes for the New York Times about marketing, and we talked to him about what we were doing. And then that all culminated on June 15th in 2000, this year, not that long ago. The first thing that happened, we launched our new website on that day, and I would encourage you to go there. It is really a nice, clean website, and it has a lot of our people talking about, besides me, talking about what we're doing as an agency. So we launched our website on that day, and the same day that we launched the website, we were written up in the New York Times by Stuart Elliott. It's the first time in our 55-year history that anybody in the New York Times had ever written a story about it. And we were surprised. And frankly, I did the interview with him. I was really delighted that he was even interested in what we were doing. And then the story was one of the most popular business stories that day. It was the most tweeted and copied. And I thought, God, that is really fascinating. And so that was the first thing that happened that morning. And then following the next couple of days, we had hundreds of stories written about us. I don't know if any of you saw any of this or you watched this in your classes, but I have a clipbook that's this thick, and they're still adding every day to it of stories that were written about GolinHarris. And I had no idea this was going to happen. And even today I'm surprised by it, but it gave me what I learned from it was there was an enormous appetite for change. That people in our industry and in the advertising industry have been talking about change for a long time. Everything around us is changing, but nobody was changing the way they work. And finally somebody actually did it, and everybody went, wow, look at this. This is amazing. And it created all kinds of buzz at other companies, at our competitors, and with our clients, and in lots of different circles. And the way they talked about it was really even more impressive than the amount of coverage. Was the way they spoke about our company was way beyond anything that I had ever imagined in terms of the impact that what we were doing was going to have. Even our competition thought it was a good idea. She probably doesn't know I'm quoting her in these presentations. And then PR Week, which is our trade publication that covers us, did a survey the next day, and it said, what do you think of GolinHarris's radical agency restructuring? And it goes in from, they've gone off the deep end, to it will transform the way agencies operate in the future. And almost 72% of the people thought what we were doing was going to transform our industry forever. And it's just, I had no idea. I was completely shocked that anybody would think what we were doing was this important or this profound. But it was great for us, and it really, I think, a lot of our people in our company were a little skeptical about this as we went through the process in terms of what it meant for them and how it was going to change their jobs and was this even a good idea. But as we got all this attention around the launch, it made everybody inside the company feel a lot better about it. And then they were excited. Said, if these people are saying all these wonderful things, this must be good. And so that helped us, I think, from that perspective. And after this, as things continued, then I started getting calls from universities. And the first person to call had a similar job to you. They ran the PR program, the graduate PR program at a major university. And she said, all my students are talking about this. And I said, what do you mean they're talking about it? She said, well, every day since you've launched this, they've been monitoring the articles, and they're bringing them to class, and they're discussing them in class, and they all want to know what this means to them. And frankly, I had never even thought of it. It never entered my mind that anybody at a school would even be paying attention to us, or what impact what we were doing might have on the curriculum or the programs at the various schools. But it was very interesting. This is a little bit about our launch. We designed these logos. It was done by a company called Morning Breath. I think they're based here, as a matter of fact. They do album covers and all kinds of things, and on it, this is our QR reader, so if you put your cell phone up to the t-shirt or the bottle of wine, it would take you to our new website. And we thought that was kind of fun. So we launched it internally, but we didn't really celebrate. We gave everybody a bottle of wine. They said, but keep it, wait a year, and we'll see how we do. Because we really didn't have anything to celebrate yet, because we hadn't succeeded, so we wanted to wait, and that was the idea that a year from now we'd celebrate. So we've got a lot of those sitting around the office. And so here's how we're going to measure if we're successful. We just did our first employee annual satisfaction. Our yearly one just came out, the results this week, and we asked questions about this, and for the most part people were very favorable about what we were doing. And one of the questions said, do you really understand your role in the new organization? And about half the people said they did. So clearly they felt good about what we were doing, but there's still a lot of work to do to help people understand their role. We're revising our client survey, so it's going to ask them, are we providing insights? Are we providing ideas? It's going to be based on that. We're going to see whether we grow, and we're going to see if we get growth from new areas, new products. And then this is some questions that I've been asked about people in your world. You know, what does this mean? And I've gone to several schools and spoken about this, and I did something online for the Planck Center recently where there were 200 students listening to this presentation. But these are some of the questions I've been asked about our new model, and I'm the first to say that I'm no expert on education. Although I did teach, I taught in junior high. But this is really the end of this presentation, but I'm happy to try to answer any questions I can about the process we went through, or what implications it might have for you guys or anybody else that's interested in public relations.
How about some questions? And that was great, by the way.
Thank you.
Some questions, please. Over here.
G4 is certainly fascinating. I'm very impressed with this model. But I'm curious to know, how have your clients responded to the change? Are they adapting towards it, or how they?
Well, they never adapt to us. Our job's always to adapt to them. And it's been interesting, and we didn't have one communications program for all of our clients, because some of our clients are not that interested. You know, it's just like, okay, whatever, just as long as I get so-and-so on my account and you do this. Others, we went through presentations like this that lasted a couple of hours, and they were fascinated by it. So it really depended. And we are rejiggering, redesigning every single client team. So every client will get different people on their team, not all brand new, but we'll be adding. So the idea is this model isn't just for our agency, but it's for every single client. So if it's a big client like McDonald's, they might have 25 people that will represent these 4 communities. But if it's a smaller client, it might be just 4 or 5, but still it should represent those skills. We think every client should have those things that they want. So overall, the client reaction has been good, and I think a lot will be in terms of whether we're able to deliver better service because of this. That's what will be most important to them. Yeah.
I'm really intrigued by how this new model is asking your employees to specialize, because I feel like, especially at the higher level education and PR, we're always told to round ourselves more, that it's not enough to know PR and writing, you also have to know design, and you also have to know XML and HTML and FBML. And so if somebody's coming into GolinHarris today looking for a job, would you rather they have sort of a good gambit of skills, or do you want them to come in knowing one thing really, really well?